Welcome back, everybody, to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and welcome to the second episode of Lightspeed. Now, if you don't know what Lightspeed is and haven't tuned into the first one, I'll very briefly explain. It's essentially a mini podcast episode in under 15 minutes, giving you the latest Star Wars headlines, news, and content. That's pretty much it. We have not exactly been doing the best at throwing that kind of stuff into the normal episodes, or I should say the full length episodes, because most of our podcasts so far, if I look back over the last year, we've done a lot of after shows. We've done a lot of commentaries. There's not exactly a whole lot of room to do news, you know, and we've never really gone out of our way to fit it in either. So for that, you know, it's nice to have official outlets like the Star Wars YouTube channel. But the first piece of news here that I'm actually going to give you, unfortunately, is that the Star Wars YouTube channel is taking a bit of a hiatus. The shows This Week on Star Wars and the Star Wars Show are both taking a longer break, and they do not know when they're going to resume making any more content. So a bit sad, because I actually tuned into that stuff on a weekly basis to stay up to things myself. But, you know, we do have the people over at StarWars.com keeping us updated. So there's always that as well. All right, let's get into the next bit of news here. The Mando and the Child come home literally in a new AR experience app. So if you own the brand new Google Pixel 5, I believe, which is also a 5G phone, which is brand new to the market, you can download this new Star Wars app, only compatible with that phone. And you can have Grogu just toddle right onto your couch, or have Din Djarin stand in your kitchen. It uses the camera on your phone and the AR Core Depth API to essentially just put these characters in your living room. That's it. If you know how AR works, you kind of get the idea. But you can have some fun with this one, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these things online. Of course, not many people own the Google Pixel 5 yet. I mean, it's a brand new phone, and I own the Pixel 4. Huge advocate for Android and the Google phones, but yeah, really cool to see this partnership. So if you do own the latest Pixel, this app is compatible only for you at the moment, and I'm sure at some point it'll come off the exclusivity shelf. But in the meantime, if you do have a Pixel 5, send me a photo of CG Grogu, maybe in your living room or on your couch or whatever. Just tag at SW Escape Podcast on Twitter, or send it to our email, theescapepod@outlook.com. We have a second headline here, the return of Fennec Shand. Of course, many of you know that the Clone Wars is getting a sequel show called The Bad Batch. And if you don't know, I'll be talking about that in just a moment. But the character of Fennec Shand has been an elite assassin on The Mandalorian, and she's played by Ming-Na Wen, who also had a role on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you ever tuned into that. But she is set to reprise her role as Fennec Shand in the animated series The Bad Batch, which is very cool because she plays the live action version of her character at the moment on The Mandalorian. And we're going back to The Bad Batch, which takes place, probably close to like 30 years or so before The Mandalorian. So, I mean, well, I think it's about 30 years, roughly. But we're going to see kind of a teenage version of this character in that show, voiced by Ming-Na Wen. And if I'm botching her name, I apologize greatly. But we're gonna get her character showing up, which is awesome, because when her character came back, I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I mean, I knew as soon as they shot her in the stomach and we saw that scene at the very end of that episode that some guy in the desert came and collected her. A lot of people thought it was Boba Fett. You know, turns out we were right. And, you know, she ended up making it through that event, got the internal workings of a robotic stomach, I guess. I don't know how she survived, but if they can bring Darth Maul back, you know, I can take this too. But I don't think Dave Filoni had any plans to kill that character off. I think it was just supposed to be a surprising shot, and then, you know, pick up that storyline a little later. But that's why that end credit scene or whatever it was that played at the very end, or pre-credit scene, I guess. It was the very last scene of that episode. They did a kind of hint that she would come back, or that something would come out of that event. So very, very cool that we're going to get this character again and more of her in the animated show, The Bad Batch. So all the new series were announced last week, and I got to kind of go down the list here and just very briefly cover you on the official titles and synopsis and details. So let's just start with Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's the official title, whereas before people were just calling it the Kenobi series. But Ewan McGregor is set to return as Obi-Wan Kenobi. The series takes place 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars Episode 3. And Hayden Christensen is also supposed to return as the character of Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. So we're going to have an insane series to watch. I think this is going to be probably the biggest event on Disney Plus when it comes out in 2021 spring. 2021 spring is when it's set to start filming. When it gets released, I assume will be in 2022. So we can look forward to that. Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader, I'm stoked. This is one of the biggest pieces of news for me, I think, that they announced last week. Our second series on the list is Star Wars Ahsoka. So following her live action debut on The Mandalorian, of course, we all know Ahsoka very well from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels and her appearance in that show, but primarily Star Wars The Clone Wars. And she's been being played by Rosario Dawson in the live action series. Dave Filoni, of course, is going to be helming the show with Jon Favreau, and it's going to be a standalone limited series. I assume that just means one season, possibly. And little is known about this entire project, all right? We only know that it's during the same time as The Mandalorian. So we can assume that it starts and ends during the same length as season 2 of The Mandalorian, maybe the duration of that show, but the events take place during the same time. And she's on a hunt for Grand Admiral Thrawn, so I assume that's where that story is going to pick up. Rangers of the New Republic, or Star Wars Rangers of the New Republic, is very similar to the Ahsoka show, where it's going to take place during the same time frame as The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. So all these three shows are existing together in the same time frame, if that makes any sense, which is 5 years after Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. So we're going to get a little more about possibly those guys that keep showing up in the X-Wings. A little more about what the Republic, the Rebellion / the New Republic is actually doing at this moment in time, because in canon so far, we don't have a whole lot. So it'll be really cool to get this as a window of it's a very cool opportunity to kind of tell that story. And this will also be crossing over with Ahsoka and the Mandalorian in a cinematic event, which will come in the next few years. And I assume that'll be an announcement that they'll make in a year or two, whenever we start getting further down the road. Previously, the Cassian Andor series was known to us as a prequel series to Rogue One, and now it's officially had its title, Star Wars Andor. Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk will return to the Star Wars universe in that show, which will act as a prequel series to Rogue One. And I believe it's supposed to be set for 12 episodes and should release in the year 2022. And it has begun filming already. And you can find a little blip of that on the Star Wars YouTube channel. And that's pretty much it for that. Looking forward to that series. I know a lot of people were somewhat disappointed going into Rogue One, knowing exactly what were going to happen, but it was a very cool movie either way. And I'm glad that we'll have more of these characters that we just didn't get enough of. So The Bad Batch, like I was saying before, exactly what it is. It's a sequel to Star Wars The Clone Wars. And me, I'm a huge fan of The Clone Wars. Cannot wait for this show. I think this, aside from Obi-Wan Kenobi, is my highlight of that whole announcement evening. And I love the character of Ahsoka, but nothing to me tops Clone Wars ever, as far as a show goes. And The Bad Batch having a sequel to the Clone Wars, I mean, that's just like a dream come true, because not only did I kind of mourn the Clone Wars cancellation for years, but I mean, we did get a finale eventually. In a perfect world, we'd have the whole show completed, but we'll make do. a series set directly after and during the events of the Clone Wars, I honestly had no idea this was coming. All right. The closest thing to Revenge of the Sith that we have right now is the Star Wars Darth Vader comic series, which is 4 volumes large, 30 something or 40 issues or whatever. And it's a great story. Recommend it. But Star Wars The Bad Batch, I'm stoked. All right. Star Wars Visions will be a 10 animated short films taking place in the Star Wars universe. I'm assuming they'll be spread out amongst the story. And they'll be authentically Japanese by Japanese studios taking these projects on. And I believe this is released next year. And I have no idea how long each of these will be, but I can imagine each of them will be under 20 minutes long or so. But very cool opportunity to kind of go back to even the High Republic era or even before and start telling some insane stories with the visual style of anime. Star Wars Lando is a series they released hardly any details on. All we know is that the series is helmed by Justin Samin or something, which is the director of Dear White People and Bad Hair. And I don't even know who's playing Lando. It could be Billy D. It could be Donald Glover. Who knows? I'm assuming it's Donald Glover, and I'm assuming it'll tie in with the events of Solo, but that's just my guess, my raw guess. I mean, don't take that as fact at all. That's just an assumption, the speculation right there. Star Wars The Acolyte. This is a very interesting show. This comes in very close to a third place kind of hype for me, because this is the first thing, aside from the recent Star Wars VR game, which had a very short little chapter in there during the High Republic. This show is during the High Republic, all right? Now, Lucasfilm has been really building this era a lot with the future books and comics coming in 2021 spring. And this show is going to be during that time, which takes place about 200 years before the events of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So we're going to have some pretty insane stuff. I mean, we could get anything from a Darth Plagueis sort of character showing up to whatever. If you don't know what an acolyte is, the only term used of an acolyte so far in Disney canon for Star Wars has been the Acolytes of the Beyond. And that's been a group of dark side worshippers that showed up kind of around the same time as Return of the Jedi. And they started collecting all these dark side relics and going after things like Vader's lightsaber and all that stuff. So this will be a very interesting show. And I think it has a lot of potential. And the creator in charge is also, her name is Leslie Headland, who also did the Netflix series Russian Doll. So very cool. Looking forward to having more details released on that one. The title card looks insane. Looks like a lightsaber slashed through the title, and looks like perhaps maybe being the acolyte could be a red one. And you know, with the Sith having been extinct for 800 years or so at this point, it's interesting to see what they might do. A Droid Story is going to be possibly a animated series or a movie, I think. We'll follow R2-D2 and C-3PO as they meet and guide a new hero. And I'm not too sure what else this is supposed to be regarding. It might be a series or show that takes place during the events of kind of the sequel era, or kind of between episode 6 and 7. Who knows? But you know, that's that. Brand new Star Wars film, Rogue Squadron, directed by Patty Jenkins, also the director of Wonder Woman, is going to be joining the Star Wars universe as the director of this show. Now, Rogue Squadron, fan favorite title. You can find games and books on this title, and it's set to release on Christmas in 2023. You can also find a short on YouTube, which kind of briefly teases that film. Additionally to that, another Star Wars film is coming to the saga, directed by Taika Waititi, who also plays IG-11 in The Mandalorian, and recently director of Thor: Love and Thunder, which is going to be the next Marvel Thor movie. He's coming to share his skills in the Star Wars galaxy, so we can look forward to that as well. But guys, that's pretty much all the headlines I have for you today. So we'll catch you next time on Star Wars Escape Pod, or the next episode of Lightspeed.